when I was in 8th grade, I remember one day I was supposed to go to school. I was in boarding school or secondary school. The first 3 years, that would be 7th, 8th, and 9th grade. I was in boarding school, and the district I was going to, it was in a kind of rural area in Rwanda. If you know, you drive like 3 hours and a half going to the place from where I was, from the capital capital of Rwanda, Kigali. So I was going to Kibungo. It was 3 hours and a half, and that time I don't know if my dad remembers, we used to make a list of stuff. It's surprising the way we have a list here of things that the kids need. We didn't have a list from school for us to follow or for us to buy, but the only thing you would do, you would think and write what you needed and tell your dad what you needed. Of course, we needed books, notebooks, we needed pencils, we needed few things. I won't say we needed much. And you needed, because it was a boarding school, we needed supplies, like feminine stuff. We needed like pads, underwears, all those clothes, uniform. It was included in the things that we needed. Your parent will do their best to buy things you need. And at that time, it was just 2 years of us coming as refugees from Congo to Rwanda. My dad was a pastor in Congo, and he had a job at church. He was pastoring a church, and we were doing really good. And we could have, you guys will excuse me, I'm not stopping the video. I get emotional so easily, and this is part of me. I have to tell you guys and to tell my kids to don't take their school supplies, being able to afford and have them to don't take it for granted, because it's a blessing. And to remind you guys, my kids and other kids as well who can afford this, to remind you there are some other kids who cannot afford this. So when we got to Rwanda, my dad had no job. He had finished, he had a license in theology, and he had a good job. He was pastoring a church, a good church. School fees was covered, everything. We didn't lack anything. And coming from that and being kind of refugees and starting our lives from scratch, my dad didn't have enough money to cover rent, to cover, maybe I'll tell you another story about being a refugee, the experience. He didn't have enough to cover everything. And in Africa, we can't afford paying school fees and buying the school supplies. It was very hard for my dad to afford everything, but he did his best. I didn't like to see my dad struggling. So my dad will go in classes, some university of theology. He will give classes. He will give some private lessons to keep the family going and to provide for the family. At that time, he was asked to start a church in it's just 45 minutes now from Kigali. It's a kind of rural at the time, Nyamata. He started a church, and planting a new church is very hard. He had a salary, but it was not enough to cover everything. Me and my sister were in boarding school. My brother was still in primary school, and so providing the school fees and everything was hard. I remember he took me from Nyamata. It was Nyamata, that place. It was 45 minutes driving. We went to Kigali. From Kigali, we had to pay like $2.50. Okay, $2 at the time. $2.50 to go as a transportation fee to go to the school, to the boarding school. And my dad showed up. I had bought some notebooks and things I needed, pencils. I'll go, they would tell you, please be careful, don't waste them, don't let other people steal them from you, just be careful with them. Then on top of that, my dad was supposed to give me transportation, then give me we called it argent de poche, pocket money, to buy feminine hygiene stuff, supplies. Some rich kids from rich families, they would bring sugar, so they made porridge at school every morning. He didn't have sugar, so they would use the sugar to in the morning for the breakfast or tea. Some they will have pocket money to go in a canteen, to go in a shop. They had a breakfast there if you wanted to, or if you wanted to buy something else you could buy, or if you run out with the pencils, notebooks, you run out and you don't have them and your parents are far away, remember, you would buy those things. Then when we got to Kigali, my dad had 5,000 Rwandan francs. 5,000 is like $5 right now. It was very hard for me to hear my dad telling me that he did his best. That's what made my heart really heavy and struggle at the time. And this in my head was, I didn't cry in front of him, but when he told me, it's like in my mind I was like, Daddy, I understand and I know you can't afford, and I know you can't afford to give me more money, but what you have you are giving me. And I was grateful because I knew our financial status, our family, the way he works very hard to cover the school fees and to pay for all the kids. It was very hard. He was trying to tell me, it's like, in other words, he tried to tell me, this is all I got, my daughter, and trying to tell me to don't worry, but to be content and happy with what he's providing. Why am I telling this story to you? You can only imagine with $5, your daddy handing $5 to you, or let's say $100 to you now to afford all those things for school supplies. It's hard. Yes, I'm affording these for my kids. I don't want them to take it for granted. I don't want it them to feel like they're spoiled. I want them to remember that at some point their dad didn't have school supplies. Some families are still struggling right now. We are grateful we have them, but don't take it for granted if you can afford these things. I can't end this video without thanking all the parents, especially my parents, who have provided for my school supplies. Even though I didn't have completely everything, but they did their best. They gave me what they had, and I am grateful. I was grateful then. They didn't need to worry and to explain themselves to me. I was grateful. Papa, I was grateful. Mama, I was grateful for everything you did for me. All the school supplies I needed, I got them. I got what I needed and what they had at the time. I'm not complaining. I'm grateful, and I was happy then. Even now I'm happy of the life I lived, because I know what they could afford, they provided. everything they had to. So God bless you, Papa. God bless you, Mama. And I want to thank all the other moms and dads out there. You are doing a good job providing for your families. What you have is what you give. You can't expect to give more if you don't have. May God bless you and keep providing all those school supplies you need. That's it for today. God bless you, and I wish you success. Either parents, I wish your kids to bring you good grades at least, and for kids, be grateful for the school supplies and don't take it for granted. If you have more, you can provide for other kids who are struggling. And another thing, like last year, 2 years ago, people were giving me stuff. Even now, a lady offered to give me 3 backpacks. So that's something. So it's that time of the year again. We are buying school supplies, and I have 4 students in the house. It's very expensive, and it's very even frustrating and hard to buy those, like